Hey, tonight we're heading west. Not today's west, not the dusty gift shops and boot-shaped mugs, but the west of cracked leather saddles, creaky outhouses, and a deep, endless silence broken only by the hiss of wind through dry mesquite. You've seen the Wild West in movies, right? Heroic gunmen with perfectly timed quips, noble sheriffs polishing badges, saloon girls dancing in layers of ruffles that never wrinkle. Yeah, no, that wasn't quite the reality. Tonight, we're going to wander through the actual American frontier, a place of blistered skin, rotten teeth, livestock accidents, and a surprising amount of boredom punctuated by short bursts of genuine terror. You'll visit Dodge City when it was more spit than polish. You'll sit on a wooden bench in Tombstone, Arizona, and try not to think too hard about the hygiene standards of your barber surgeon. We'll peek into a brothel where venereal disease was considered part of the job description. And yes, we'll stand uncomfortably close to a traveling dentist boiling his tools in whiskey, if you're up for that kind of thing. You'll meet cowboys whose days were less yee-haw and more, my boots are full of blood. You'll ride alongside mail carriers who risked freezing to death just to deliver 4 soggy envelopes to a town no one really wanted to live in. And you'll sit in on a trial where guilt or innocence often hinged on who owned the loudest voice or the most bullets. The Wild West wasn't wild because it was exciting. It was wild because nobody had any idea what they were doing, and everyone was too stubborn to admit it. So dim the lights. Loosen your holster, metaphorically of course. Get cozy under whatever blankets you've got. We're going to ease into the dust-choked alleys, broken-down stagecoaches, and fly-infested saloons of the frontier. And if you enjoy these sleepy tales from the dusty corners of weird history, I'd love it if you liked or subscribed. Always appreciate it. Also, where are you listening from? I love reading that. Let me know your city and what time it is down in the comments. Alright partner, saddle up, but gently. You'll want to conserve your strength. The West was not made for comfort, and it really wasn't made for you. Let's drift. You arrive in a dusty outpost that technically has a name, but everyone just calls it the Crossing. There's a well in the center of town, loosely covered with a splintering lid. A boy draws a bucket with effort, the rope groaning like an old man's knees. You're parched. The sun has been drilling into the top of your head all day. The wind smells of manure and coal smoke. You cup your hands beneath the ladle and drink without thinking. Big mistake. The well water is warm and faintly metallic. A sort of green slick coats the inside of the bucket. Later, you'll find out that the town privy drains, well, let's say, accidentally, into the same groundwater. Typhoid, dysentery, cholera. The frontier didn't need outlaws to kill you, just a sip of the wrong water. In 1850s Nebraska territory, travelers regularly dropped dead from camp fever, a polite term for violent intestinal eruptions. Doctors prescribed laudanum, mercury, or, most famously, nothing. Many were barbers or butchers who'd read one book. You sit on a crate, clutching your stomach, trying not to imagine what's slithering through your gut. The nearby general store sells Dr. McAllister's Life Elixir, which is mostly grain alcohol and opium. Still, it sells out fast. Across the way, a child vomits into a basin. A dog laps at it absent-mindedly. Life goes on. Out here, clean water was a rumor, whispered by migrants who hadn't yet reached the Mississippi. You lean back, breathing shallow, hoping your stomach calms before nightfall. There's a long ride ahead. You've managed to crawl your way to shelter, a lodging house made from warped pine boards and wishful thinking. It's called the Golden Horizon, but the sign is burned and there's no horizon in sight. You pay your nickel and are pointed toward a bunk room filled with rope-strung cots. The mattress is stuffed with straw that crackles and shifts. It smells like wet burlap and forgotten sweat. You lie down. Something immediately bites your ankle. Bedbugs, maybe lice, possibly fleas, all equally committed to their mission. In the 1870s, inns were breeding grounds for every crawling, itching misery. Washing sheets was rare. Mattresses were shared, sometimes hourly. You turn over and notice a small stain. Best not to wonder. The walls are paper thin. You hear a drunk coughing on the other side. Underneath that, a rhythmic thumping from the floorboards. Either someone's dancing or something's trapped. You reach for the thin blanket. It's damp, smells faintly of pipe smoke and ham. Sleep doesn't come easy. Out here, the dark isn't silent. It creaks, shifts, breathes. Eventually, your eyes close. You hope morning arrives before anything hatches. The next day, your molar throbs like a church bell. You ask around, and someone points to a shed beside the barber shop. "Doc's in there," they say, without enthusiasm. You walk in. It smells like tobacco, spit, and boiled wool. The dentist is also the undertaker, a man with more tools than training. He greets you with a grunt and gestures to a chair that used to be something else. No gloves, no anesthesia, no license. Frontier dentistry was bold, brave, bloody. He picks up a pair of blackened pliers and mutters, "Open wide." In 1867, most extractions were done by brute force and willpower. Sometimes whiskey was offered, but only if you paid extra. You close your eyes and brace. The first tug sends a bolt through your skull. You groan. He tells you to hold still. The second tug dislodges the tooth and a bit of your dignity. He holds it up triumphantly, like a fisherman admiring the day's catch, then drops it in a tin bucket. You try not to cry. There's no gauze, just a rag soaked in something you hope was meant for wounds. He offers you a swig of whiskey, not for the pain, for the swelling, he says. You leave with a swollen cheek, blood on your shirt, and a newfound appreciation for modern medicine. You're standing in front of the dry goods store, admiring a jar of pickled eggs, when a shout goes up. "Gather round, justice at noon." You're swept along in a crowd of dusty men, children, and even a few women in sun-bleached bonnets. It's hot, the kind of heat that sticks to your ribs. A rough scaffold has been thrown together with scrap lumber and questionable knots. The condemned man stands on a crate. He's silent, might be drunk, might be innocent. In the 1880s, due process was often optional. Trials lasted minutes. The hangman wasn't always a professional, sometimes just the nearest deputy. The sheriff reads something. The crowd murmurs. A child drops a doll. A vulture circles overhead with comic timing. Then a rope, a kick, a silence that isn't really silence. You look away, queasy. Someone offers you a smoked turkey leg. You decline. Hangings were public spectacle, part punishment, part community theatre. The crowd disperses, already bored. Life and death move fast out here. You sit on a barrel and stare at the dust. You think about justice, about rope, about the eggs you never bought. At some point, you convince yourself you could be a cowboy. It's just riding a horse and waving a hat, right? You sign up with a cattle drive heading toward Abilene. Day 1, you fall off the horse. Day 2, you fall off again, but this time into a cactus. The workday starts before sunrise. You eat beans, always beans, from a dented tin. Your boots are soaked from river crossings. The chafing, unspeakable. Cattle are louder than you expected, smellier too. They moo with a kind of cosmic boredom that echoes across the plain. At night, you lie beneath the stars, which sounds poetic until you realize the ground is crawling and your blanket's damp with dew. One cowboy plays a harmonica badly, another snores like a wounded bear. In 1874, cowboys earned about $1 a day, and most lost money after repairs and injuries. Your hands are blistered, your back aches, and the beans have turned against you. You stare into the fire and reconsider every decision you've ever made. It's only been 2 days. You board the stagecoach because it seems easier than riding a mule 80 miles. It's not. The coach rocks like a boat in a thunderstorm, the wooden wheels clattering over every rock and rut with malicious intent. You're squeezed between a woman clutching a jar of pickles and a man who hasn't removed his boots or his opinions since Kansas. The driver yells encouragement to the horses while chewing something brown and odorous. It might be tobacco, it might not. After an hour, your tailbone begins filing formal complaints. Somewhere outside El Paso, the coach slows. The driver mutters, "Could be bandits." He says this like someone saying, "Might rain later." In 1877, highway robberies were as common as sunburn. Some robbers were oddly polite, others less so. You peer out the dusty window and see nothing but scrubland and heat. Then a flash of movement, a man on horseback, then another. You grip your seat. The jar of pickles rattles. But they pass, just riders, maybe scouts, maybe ghosts. The coach lurches forward, you exhale. The man beside you starts talking about gold again, you pretend to sleep. There's another 12 hours to go. The road winds on and your spine forgets what comfort feels like. You realize something no movie ever tells you. The Wild West was mostly just uncomfortable. You step into the saloon at dusk. The swinging doors slap behind you with theatrical flair. Inside it smells of sweat, whiskey and spilt dreams. A piano plays something that was probably cheerful before the keys went missing. A bartender eyes you with suspicion. Or boredom, it's hard to tell. You order a drink, the glass isn't clean, neither is the whiskey. You take a sip. It burns in a way that makes you question whether this was brewed, distilled, or simply strained through someone's hat. In the 1880s, saloon whiskey was often cut with turpentine, tobacco juice, or even sulfuric acid. It explains a lot. You sit at a table. A card game is in progress. One man's got a pistol on the table, another is missing an ear. No one's smiling. A woman in a corset offers to show you around. You decline. She shrugs and moves on. Her perfume is strong, probably masking something stronger. A man throws up into a spittoon. No one reacts. The bartender refills your glass without asking. You wonder if it's a kindness or a threat. You leave after an hour. Your head spins. The air outside feels cleaner, though it still smells like horses. You sit on the porch and breathe in the night. Somewhere, a coyote howls. You're not sure if it's warning you or laughing. After 3 days on the trail, you'd give anything for a bath. Anything, even money. You stumble into a bathhouse run by an elderly woman named Maud, who's seen everything and isn't impressed by any of it. She nods to a back room. Third tub's clean enough. The room is humid, wood-panelled, and smells of soap, mildew, and wet coin. You strip down and ease yourself into a tub of lukewarm water that's probably been used by at least 3 men today. In the 1870s, clean was a relative term. Soap was lie-heavy, towels were reused, privacy was optional. You try not to think about it, you soak. Then Maud enters and dumps a bucket of cold water over your head. "Included in the price," she says. You choke slightly, then laugh. It's the first time you've felt human in a while. The man in the next tub hums a hymn. Another one is shaving with a knife. Someone sneezes into the water. You close your eyes. Let the heat, or at least the illusion of it, sink into your bones. For a moment, the West feels almost gentle. Then someone farts loudly and the spell breaks. You decide to send a letter home. Something about all this dust and near-death dentistry makes you sentimental. You head to the post office, a small shack attached to a feed store. Inside, a clerk snoozes behind a desk. A pile of unclaimed mail sits beside him, dust forming little dunes on the envelopes. You buy paper, ink, a stamp. The pen is dry. The ink smells like vinegar. You sit at a wobbly desk. Outside, a mule brays. You begin. "Dear Mother," and then realize how hard it is to describe your week without alarming her. You settle for vague optimism. Weather's warm, people are colourful, food's edible. That last one's a lie. Mail in the 1800s was unreliable. Letters could take weeks and sometimes months, if they arrived at all. Some were lost to bandits, others to bad weather, or just plain laziness. You seal the envelope with wax and hand it over. The clerk doesn't look up. He waves vaguely toward a sack on the floor. You place your letter inside and hope it doesn't disappear into the abyss. Later, you realize you forgot to write your return address. You sigh. The West teaches you not to expect replies. You're passing through a mining town when you hear a commotion outside a boarding house. A man has broken his leg in the shaft. They're carrying him in on a door. The doctor arrives. He's wearing what might be a butcher's apron, might have been a butcher. He rolls up his sleeves and mutters something about resetting the bone. No gloves, no sterilization, no anesthetic beyond a bottle of gin. You watch as he ties the patient's arms with rope and bites down on a stick. The doctor grabs a mallet. Yes, a mallet. Surgery on the frontier was loud, brutal, and usually fatal. The doctor resets the leg with a sickening crunch. You look away, only to notice that the tools are sitting on a tablecloth covered in what appears to be last night's stew. The patient screams, then faints. The doctor nods, satisfied. He'll live. He lights a cigar and walks off. You stand there blinking. You start to feel a little queasy, maybe from the sight, maybe from the smell. A woman nearby mutters, "Better than most." You find a seat under a tree and watch dust swirl through the air like smoke. In the West, healing and harm came from the same hands. You're not dead, not yet, but you find yourself wandering into the undertaker's parlour, partly out of curiosity, partly because it's the only building with shade. Inside, it's cool and quiet. You're greeted by the smell of varnish, wilted lilies, and a faint trace of something chemical. The undertaker, a thin man with ink-stained fingers, looks up from a ledger. He nods politely, as if you've come to inquire about real estate. Coffins line the walls like bookshelves. Some are pre-nailed, others half-finished. A child-sized one rests near the door. You pretend not to notice. In frontier towns, undertakers doubled as carpenters, dentists, and sometimes grocers. Anyone handy with a saw could help the dead find a place to rest. The man offers you a tour. You follow out of awkwardness. He points to a box of hair clippings. Families like keepsakes. He opens a cabinet. Inside, bottles of arsenic, carbolic acid, and a bone saw. You nod, as if this is all very normal. Embalming wasn't common out here. Too expensive, too complicated. Most folks were buried the same day they died, if someone remembered. The undertaker shows you a pamphlet. Preserve your loved one in 4 easy steps. You quietly back away. Outside, the sun feels harsher. You sit on the porch and realize that in the Wild West, death had better hours than most businesses. Your shoes have finally given out. The soles flap like tongues. Every step sounds like polite applause. You limp into the town's only cobbler, a hut that smells strongly of tallow and regret. A bell jingles as you enter. The shopkeeper looks up with eyes that say, "Please don't ask for anything complicated." You explain your situation. He points to a wall of boots. All are stiff, mismatched, and clearly used. You pick up a pair. One is smaller than the other. He shrugs. That's why they're discounted. In 1872, new boots were rare. Most were second-hand, patched, or made from leftover materials. Some still had initials burned inside from the previous owner, or owners. You try them on. The left boot pinches, the right boot sags. Your heel lifts with every step like you're sneaking around your own shadow. You ask if there's anything better. He offers a pair made from horsehide, heavy, unyielding, also damp. You sigh and hand over your coins. Later, you walk outside with your new purchase. Every step is a negotiation. Still, it beats walking barefoot over prairie thorns. Barely. You've heard the stories, gold in the rivers, silver in the hills. So you borrow a pan, hike to a stream, and begin the slow descent into madness known as prospecting. The stream is shallow, cold. Your fingers go numb within minutes. You swirl gravel in your pan and wait, and wait, and wait. Gold Rush propaganda made it sound easy. They didn't mention the hours of sifting mud, the backaches, the frostbite, or the number of people who died from falling rocks before ever striking anything valuable. You spot something shiny. Your heart leaps. Turns out it's mica, fool's gold. Irony optional. Down the creek, A man named Lester is yelling about a vein the size of a horse. He's also drunk and talking to a crow. You keep panning. A beetle crawls across your wrist. You begin to understand the quiet desperation that haunts mining towns. You look at your pan, just more dirt. You begin to wonder if dirt is all life ever gives. You pack up before sunset. Your boots squelch with each step. You'll try again tomorrow, maybe, or maybe not. You take a job tapping out messages for the telegraph office, mostly because it involves sitting indoors. The machine clicks, you click back. It's rhythmic, meditative, a kind of metallic lullaby. Until someone brings in a message from Fort Laramie. It's 75 words, all of them urgent, all misspelled. You spend the next hour translating panic into Morse code, one dot at a time. In 1885, telegraphers were underpaid, overworked, and blamed for every delay. You're handed messages that range from military orders to drunken rants to poorly phrased marriage proposals. You ask the station master if this is normal. He laughs, then coughs. He hasn't slept since Thursday. You eat cold beans from a tin and try to remember if the message you just sent was for a supply order or a warning about smallpox. The office smells of ink, grease, and unspoken frustration. You begin to dream in dots and dashes. At some point, your arm cramps. You stretch. The machine clicks again. Another message. No one cares that it's midnight. You sigh and return to your seat. At least you're not outside. Small mercies. It starts in the bakery. A spark. A gust of wind. Suddenly flames are licking up the side of the building like they've been waiting. You hear the shouting first, then the bells, then the crack of dry timber surrendering to heat. You rush outside. Townsfolk are running with pails, bowls, even a chamber pot. The town has one proper bucket. It leaks. You join the line anyway. Water sloshes. Someone trips. A woman screams. In 19th century frontier towns, fire was apocalypse in slow motion. Most buildings were dry wood. Roofs were cedar shingles. Fire departments were theoretical. The flames leap from one structure to the next. The general store, the stables. A barn ignites like it's been waiting its whole life. You throw a half-full pail. It makes no difference. The smoke stings your eyes. Embers rain like fireflies. Then the wind changes, the fire slows, a few brave souls hack at the flames with wet blankets. By morning, 3 buildings are gone. A 4th is smouldering, people gather, no one speaks. The air smells of charcoal and loss. You sip water from a cracked mug and wonder how anything survives out here. But somehow, it always does. It's Sunday. Not that it feels much different from Tuesday, but the bell rings anyway, hollow and cracked like everything else. You wander into the town's church, a one-room structure that smells of pine sap, dust, and old hymnals. The pews creak beneath your weight. A wasp buzzes near the window and forgets how glass works. The preacher arrives. His collar is crooked. His Bible is missing pages. His sermon is not so much inspiring as long. In many frontier towns, preachers doubled as doctors, teachers, or even bartenders. Some were trained, most weren't, but they had conviction and volume. He reads from Revelation and pounds the pulpit. Spittle flies. You try not to flinch. The baby behind you screams. A dog barks outside. The sermon veers into personal grudges. He condemns idle hands, false idols, and whoever keeps letting chickens into the cemetery. You shift in your seat. The wasp finally gives up and dies. An old woman coughs. Once, twice, then keeps coughing for the rest of the service. You hope it's not catching. The singing begins. Rough voices join in, off-key but earnest. A man 2 pews ahead bellows like he's summoning cattle. You mouth the words and pretend to believe. Afterward, people gather on the porch to gossip and eat dry cornbread. You decline politely and wander off into the sunlight, ears ringing. Your soul may be saved, but your patience wasn't. The wagon rolls into town with painted signs, loud music, and a man in a top hat shouting about miracles. You're intrigued, or maybe just bored. He promises a cure for gout, fever, female complaints, baldness, melancholy, and something called liver rattle. You join the crowd, children giggle, a woman faints on cue, the man gestures to bottles filled with something golden and suspiciously bubbly. You buy one, of course you do. In 1880s America, snake oil salesmen roamed from town to town selling alcohol, opium, turpentine, anything that could be bottled and spun into a miracle. You take a sip, it tastes like peppermint and kerosene, your tongue goes numb. That might be good, or very bad. A man beside you starts dancing, not well, just energetically. The salesman thanks the crowd, pockets his coins, and rides off before nightfall. By morning, half the town has diarrhea and the other half reports strange dreams. You sit on a crate, staring at your half-empty bottle. You think you feel better, or maybe just buzzed. Either way, you've been sold something, and out here, that's half the battle. Food supplies are low. Again, you decide to fish. Seems easy enough. A river, a hook, some patience. You carve a crude rod from a sapling, fashion a hook from bent wire, and use a bit of jerky as bait. The river looks promising. You wait and wait. The sun creeps higher. Mosquitoes arrive. One lands on your eyelid and refuses to leave. You get a bite, your heart jumps, and you reel in a boot with moss in it. In the 19th century, frontier fishing was less a relaxing pastime and more a gamble between hunger and disappointment. You catch one small catfish by noon. It stares at you with unblinking judgment. You build a fire, clean it poorly, and overcook it until it resembles charcoal with fins. Still, it's protein. You eat it slowly, ignoring the tiny bones. The river murmurs beside you. Somewhere downstream, a beaver smacks the water with its tail. You feel watched but not threatened. You lean back against a rock and let the breeze carry the scent of pine and fish guts. It's not a feast, but you're still alive. For now, the wind changes. Suddenly it's louder, sharper, filled with grit. The horizon vanishes in a rising wall of beige. You squint. Someone shouts, "Dust's coming!" You dive into an abandoned barn just as the storm hits. The sky goes dark. The world turns into sandpaper. Dust storms were common in the high plains, especially during dry seasons. They'd roll in fast, swallowing towns, choking livestock, and blinding travelers. Inside, the barn creaks. Dust pours through the cracks like it has an invitation. You cover your mouth with a scarf and lie flat on the floor. Breathing is optional. Outside, the wind howls like it remembers something it regrets. A chicken bursts through the door, eyes wide, feathers backward. You both freeze, locked in mutual disbelief. Time stretches, dust piles. Every part of you itches. You try not to blink. Eventually the storm passes, slowly, reluctantly, like it's waiting for someone to beg. You step outside into a world that looks like it's been erased and redrawn badly. Everything is coated in powder. Your teeth crunch when you close your jaw. You spit. The wind spits back. You never want to see dirt again. Too bad. You live in it. Morning arrives and you crave coffee. Not just want, need. You gather supplies, a tin pot, some stale grounds, and water from the least questionable barrel. You dump everything together and set it over the fire. It bubbles ominously. A film forms. Something screams. Might be the kettle. You pour a cup. It smells like old boots and bitterness. You drink anyway. In the frontier days, coffee was more necessity than luxury. Beans were reused, grounds boiled for days and sometimes mixed with chicory, ashes, or acorns. Your brew tastes like punishment. A passing cowboy asks for a cup. You hand him yours. He drinks, pauses, then mutters, "Damn fine mud," and walks away. You make another batch. It's worse, somehow. You sip it slowly, staring into the morning fog. The world feels distant, slow, and strangely gentle. The coffee might be awful, but it's warm, and sometimes that's all you need. You're sitting outside the saloon. chewing on jerky that tastes like seasoned leather when it begins. Two men square off in the street. Dust swirls at their boots. One wears a bowler hat. The other chews a matchstick with grave intensity. They're arguing about a pig. Whose pig? No one's quite sure. Duels in the West weren't always like the movies. Quick draw, 10 paces, dramatic music. More often they were chaotic bursts of panic and bad aim. These two pace, then stop. One reaches for his belt, the other fumbles. A shot cracks, but it's the bystander who gets hit in the foot. The crowd gasps. The duelists blink. Then both men run in opposite directions. It's over. No death, just embarrassment. In 1881, a study found that most gunfights involved one or both shooters missing entirely. Guns jammed, hands shook, bullets wandered. You check on the injured bystander. He curses creatively but says he's fine. The pig, still missing. You lean against the wall and sigh. You came for justice. You got slapstick. Such is the West. You agree to watch someone's homestead while they fetch supplies. Just feed the chickens, they say. Keep 'em safe. Easy, until it isn't. At dawn, the coop erupts into chaos. Feathers fly. One rooster clearly has a grudge. The feed sack splits. Chickens, you learn, are faster than you'd think, and meaner. You chase them through sagebrush, around barrels, under fences. They scatter like dropped marbles. In the 1800s, poultry was precious. Eggs meant food, roosters meant fights. Chickens were both investment and nuisance. You catch one by the legs, it screams like a demon and flaps into your face. By noon, you're scratched, filthy, and down 3 hens. One is roosting in the rafters, another appears to be underground. You finally give up and toss corn near the coop. They return, smug. You sit on a bucket and re-evaluate your life. Farming, it turns out, isn't just dirt and sunshine. It's mostly chickens and regret. You find shelter on the prairie, a low, lumpy structure that looks more like a large molehill than a home. A sod house, earth stacked into walls, a roof of thatch and hope. Inside it's dim, smells like damp straw and chimney smoke. You sit on a bench carved from tree roots. The wind whistles through cracks. A spider watches from the ceiling. Sodbusters, early settlers of the plains, built these homes when timber was scarce. They were cool in summer, warmish in winter, and home to about 40 kinds of insect. You lie on a bed of dry grass, wrapped in a wool blanket that sheds. Something nibbles your toe, probably a mouse, possibly not. Rain begins. The roof leaks, not badly, just consistently. The fireplace smokes. You cough once and decide it's fine. Outside, coyotes howl. Inside, something shifts under the floor. You close your eyes and think of real walls, ones that don't crumble when touched. But for now, this will do. It has a roof, and a door that sort of latches, which is luxury, really. There's a river between you and where you need to go. There's no bridge, just a rope ferry and an old man named Clarence who says he's done this 600 times. You ask if it's safe. He laughs, not comfortingly. The raft is logs lashed with old rope. You step on, it sways ominously. Midway across, the current grabs hold. The rope groans, water splashes. Clarence hums a tune about drowning. You cling to a post. In the 19th century, river crossings were among the most dangerous parts of travel. Strong currents, rotting ropes, rafts that sank for sport. You spot something floating beside the raft. A boot, just one. Clarence says nothing. The far bank inches closer. You consider jumping, then reconsider. Finally, with a jolt, the raft scrapes land. You kiss dirt, quietly, with dignity. Clarence tips his hat and goes back for his next customer. You sit under a tree, soaked and slightly wiser. No bridge, no problem, just mild trauma. It started with a misunderstanding. A cow wandered into the saloon. You suggested it was funny. The deputy did not. Now you're in jail and a wooden shed with bars that wouldn't stop a determined raccoon. There's one bench, one bucket, and a rat who seems to own the place. The sheriff says he'll let you stew a while. You stew, mostly in boredom. In the frontier, jail was often improvised. A back room, a cellar, or a wagon with locks. Sentences ranged from "until you learn something" to "whenever someone remembers." Your cellmate is asleep or unconscious, hard to tell. You scratch your name into the wall beside a long list of initials. Some have dates, some have tally marks, some just trails that stop. You nap, badly, wake, nap again. Eventually the deputy returns, says the cow's been claimed, you're free to go. No apology, no paperwork, just a shove and a door that creaks. You blink in the sunlight, newly reformed. You vow to avoid cows, saloons and opinions, at least for a day. The sheriff's out of town, again, and someone's mule has been stolen. Naturally, a citizens' committee is formed. You're included, mostly because you were standing nearby. You're handed a badge carved from tin and told to look official. It doesn't help. You join the search party. You find tracks, maybe mule, maybe something else. The trail leads to a shack. Inside, a man eating beans, a saddle that might be the mule's, and zero interest in conversation. The posse mutters. Someone mentions rope. You suggest maybe we ask questions first. They glare. In many frontier towns, justice was swift, sometimes too swift. A misplaced hat could spark a hanging. You step back. This doesn't feel like law, it feels like steam venting. Eventually someone remembers the mule wandered into the next town last week. No crime, just livestock with wanderlust. The committee disbands, the tin badge is taken back. You're not thanked. You walk home slowly, boots dragging in the dust. Justice, it turns out, is more performance than principle, especially out here. You decide to commemorate your journey, a portrait you think, something to remember when your boots finally rot off. The photographer welcomes you into a small studio behind the apothecary. Smells like varnish, dust and old chemicals. He adjusts the curtain, moves the stool, hands you a jacket 2 sizes too small. For formality, he says. You sit, you try to smile, he frowns. No teeth. 19th century photos weren't about cheer, they were about stillness and survival. He drapes a black cloth over his head. The camera is massive, mounted like a cannon. The lens glares. Hold still, he says, for 20 seconds. You freeze, something itches, you don't blink, your back cramps. A flash powder explodes, you cough, the room fills with white smoke and regret. Later, he shows you the plate. You look grim, haunted, but alive. He nods. You'll want 2 copies. You pay in coins and cough your way into the street, your face still stinging. Somewhere in the world, there's now a picture of you looking like you've seen the devil, which frankly you might have. You finally sit down to reflect. A quiet hour, some thoughts, maybe wisdom. You find a stump beneath a sycamore. Pull out your battered notebook. The paper smells like smoke and soap. Your pen leaks, your hand cramps. A fly lands in the ink. Still, you write. Day, unknown, dust everywhere, beans, endless, teeth, fewer, morale, questionable. In the 1800s, journaling was how many settlers coped, with loneliness, with grief, with time moving sideways. You scratch down memories, a fire, a laugh, a man you met who claimed to be part ghost. You underline part ghost. The pages fill slowly. Your handwriting becomes less legible, your thoughts less linear. You pause, listen to the wind. A bird calls from somewhere high. You write, still alive, not sure how. You sign your name like it means something, like this record might be found, might be read, might matter. You tuck the book away and lie back on the grass, eyes drifting skyward. There's peace in small pages. No town tonight, no fire, just stars. You roll out your blanket on hard ground, the sky yawning wide above you, black velvet pricked with light. Crickets hum, something rustles in the grass. You tell yourself it's small, the air is cool, your breath fogs a little. You pull your coat tight. In the vastness you feel small, not in a bad way, just accurate. 19th century travellers often camped under open skies, coyotes nearby, unseen rivers flowing. You close your eyes, hear a far-off owl. You dream of cities, warm bread, boots that fit. You wake briefly, the wind shifting. A cloud slides across the moon like a curtain drawn. Then darkness again. No walls, no noise, just earth and stars and your own steady breath. It's the best sleep you've had all week. Maybe the West isn't trying to kill you tonight, just lull you into silence. You pack your things, what little you haven't lost, broken or bartered. Your boots are cracked, your hat is crooked, your skin smells of wood smoke and old beans. You walk through the town one last time, past the saloon, the blacksmith, the jail that still creaks. Someone waves, you wave back, you don't know their name, that's fine. You cross the main road, step over a chicken, nod at the undertaker who nods back like he's keeping track. The West hasn't made you stronger, just adjusted your expectations of comfort, of justice, of food, but also of yourself. You realize now the Wild West wasn't wild because of the gunfights or gold rushes. It was wild because life here was stubborn, fragile, dusty, and determined to continue. You reach the edge of town. Behind you, smoke curls from chimneys. Ahead, the road stretches quiet and long. You take a step, then another. The West doesn't say goodbye. It just recedes behind you, slowly, like a story half remembered.